Hello and welcome to another episode of Her Helping Habit on Air. We are a Canadian fertility agency specializing in known egg donation, embryo donation, and surrogacy, helping intended parents, surrogates, and donors navigate their journeys through education, support, and advocacy. Through open conversations and shared experiences, we aim to empower everyone involved in the family building process. Her Helping Habit on Air does not provide medical advice. These are simply lived experiences shared to help make the often uncharted world of infertility feel a little less scary.
I am Katie Paquin, Her Helping Habits founder, and I am a 6-time known egg donor myself. So today I am out camping. Being out here in nature just sparks my creativity. I find it gets those juices flowing, and I do some of my best focus work out here. Today I really got thinking about why does known egg donation matter so much, and I figured I would just stop what I was doing and share my thoughts live on camera. I know this is a really scary topic, but I think it's important that we do listen to the donor-conceived voices that are already out there. There's Facebook groups out there for everything today. There's lots of people sharing their stories on social media. It's very possible to find stories if you do want to educate yourself. People wonder, are my children going to be okay? But I don't think that we can look to a particular person and say, okay, so you turned out all right, so my child will too if I do exactly what your parents did in terms of disclosure. It's important to remember what we learn and listen to those voices, but also remember everybody's different, everyone has their own personality, everyone's situation is going to be unique and different. There's also going to be no right or wrong way of doing things. So I know this is a very emotional topic. At the end of the day, everyone just wants to do right by the children who are conceived through these donations. So I just want to remember and keep that kind of at the forefront of this video. People involved in these discussions, like on Facebook or Instagram, they're parents of donor-conceived children, and they're often coming from a place of grief, long fertility journey, and they often, I don't think, have really processed their own feelings and come at this a little bit naively. And then we've got donor-conceived people also on there who maybe weren't told about their origins and have some complex feelings about that. They've had maybe curiosity dismissed, been told that they're ungrateful for existing. You've got a written form that only allows so much nuance. It's almost too simplistic to really go into some of these complex issues. And even here, while I'm camping and having this conversation online and YouTube, recording this now for future, it can be really difficult at times to really step into these forums or listening to these videos or podcasts and really understand. It's going to probably happen quite often where you come across some not so nice comments. People often judge, and they're going to trigger you when you're reading those comments, right? Based on where you are in your journey and what you've experienced. So that's normal. We somehow have to learn to separate these feelings from our child's feelings, because how we feel and how they feel is different. It's easy to blend and to merge the two, but I think we need to also acknowledge, context is key. Not everything's black and white. Like I said earlier, everybody is different. Every situation's different. I think it's something to keep in mind that everybody has a different backstory. All we can do as parents is not just assume that what happens to us is going to happen to our kids. As a parent, I'm still feeling shame and I'm struggling with that. But how can I best support my child? We can kind of learn and go, okay, so there's research, there's other people I can listen to, stories of people who have gone through this, and maybe I as a parent, I'm struggling. Maybe I'm still feeling shame, but how can I best support myself so that I can be in this position to support my child? And that's really what we try to do at Her Helping Habit. We are trying to nurture this from the very beginning. We keep that door open. We introduce intended parents to their egg donor even before they undergo an egg retrieval, so that you have that option to tell your child their story from the very beginning. You have that ability to get to know this person beyond just a piece of paper. You can verify for your children, she looked like the photos I was presented with. She sounded amazing on paper, but virtually meeting her or meeting her in person was so much better. She's an outstanding woman who helped us. I want you to be able to say that with confidence because you know it to be true. You're not just trusting a third-party agency or clinic to be doing that vouching or verification for you. You can share with your child everything around how they were conceived and keep that conversation open and going as they grow. I think it's important to recognize that curiosity is a normal, natural part of being a human. If and when you ever decide to tell your child, if they express curiosity about their donor, that is natural and normal. And it's got nothing to do with you or not feeling like you are their parent or, that they love you. Having curiosity to seek out a donor does not reflect how that child feels about you as their parent. I think that's really important to remember. I'm not donor conceived, but I can get that from a certain perspective. I would be curious too. I went through a brief period in my life where I did DNA testing and there was nothing showing up when it automatically connects you to relatives on my paternal side. And it threw me for a little bit of a loop. And there were quite a few weeks where I questioned and I wondered, is my father my father? I ended up finding a connection, but for a little bit there, just that feeling of uncertainty left me feeling quite uneasy. I couldn't imagine how that would feel for a donor-conceived person. And I think that is what has always driven me in my decision to be a known donor and to pick recipients that share the same idea of openness as me, because I try to put myself in the shoes of somebody who was conceived this way. If that was me, I would be curious. If you can put yourself in their shoes, put yourself in the shoes of your child, let that guide and lead some of your decisions. I think in some of these Facebook groups and online forums and even social media sharing that people can forget that this curiosity is normal. It's a normal part of being a human. Psychologists, if you were to go speak to one about this, they would all tell you that this type of curiosity is normal in a donor-conceived person, an adoptee. I would challenge you to ask yourself that if you were donor-conceived, how would you feel about that? Today, right now, you get a call and you find out that your mother or father needed a sperm or an egg donor to create you. You're however old, everything you ever knew up until this moment about your mommy or your dad, out the window. Just gone. Just for a second, let's pause and imagine what that would feel like. To me, that's just wild. Often in my research of donor-conceived people, they find the problems tend to come with their parents when their curiosity isn't acknowledged and it's dismissed. They're asked oh, so does that mean you don't love me? They're very protective around their relationship with their child, which I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I think that's also normal. But there's no honesty around these conversations. It's just dismiss, dismiss, dismiss. Or at least that's what their child is feeling. And then they shut down. They don't have these conversations anymore. And now this line of open communication you've probably tried to develop since they were quite young, I would imagine, is severed. And it's really hard to repair. From when I have talked to donor-conceived people, I always hear that when they go to seek out this donor, if that's something they choose, it's something that's always in addition, not instead of. And I think as a parent, if you can be open and encouraging of curiosity, that can completely transform your child's experience. It's trying to think about preparing ourselves for these responses in the future so that our children don't feel dismissive in the future. Getting comfortable with the language and these conversations when they're young and they're early, even as young as infancy, they can't talk back. They have absolutely no idea what you're saying, even in toddlerhood. But it's for you to get comfortable with this language and then be very well prepared when they are in teenage or young adulthood and you're having some of these harder conversations. Our responses to our children's voices really make a huge impact and a difference in their discovery journey. I don't know if that resonates with you at all, but those are my Katie thoughts today that I felt like I needed to share in this Pink Palace. There is lots of research though to support what I'm saying, and I'd love to share those links. If you want to comment down below, I'm happy to share those. I'd love to keep this conversation going. Be prepared to have this conversation multiple times. It's not going to be a one-off. You might feel, a lot of relief. We had that. It's done. It's over. But also be prepared for more questions and conversations down the line. Whether that's a year, 6 months, 10 years, it could and may happen again. Just having that open dialogue. There's a lot of power in that. Early disclosure, you just don't know how it's going to be received. So let's be prepared and overshoot instead of undershooting. And at a minimum, just educating yourself and learning what some of these issues are or can be. Coming from a place of how can I make this not a taboo subject for my child and our family. You know how you feel as a parent, but you have no idea how your child's going to feel. And it could be anywhere on a spectrum, but we want them to feel comfortable wherever they may fall on that spectrum. So I guess in terms of tips that I could give you, they would just be general connection tips. Put your phone down. Spend that quality time with your child. Eye contact. Really getting down on their level and playing. Obviously at different ages, that idea of play is going to be different. But connection. Connection. I think at the end of the day is really going to help. As I just wrap this up and close, I want to acknowledge that this is a challenging topic. We're constantly learning. We can only do our best. And just being here, clicking on this video, being curious yourself is a huge win. It's a start. And I appreciate you trusting me to be a little bit of your guide on this journey today. Thanks. Take care, everyone.
If you'd like to connect with us or have questions about known egg donation, embryo donation, surrogacy, becoming a parent, or exploring whether becoming a surrogate or donor is right for you, you can find us online at Her Helping Habit or email us at info@herhelpinghabit.com. We're passionate about educating and supporting all parties throughout the journey, and you can also book a free consultation with one of our coordinators directly through our website. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon on the next episode of Her Helping Habit on Air. Thank you.